Hello once again. Welcome to J Lowe Artist YouTube channel. I'm so glad you're here. This channel is designed for the beginning artist, for someone who wants to increase some of their skills, or even for an established artist who wants to find some different techniques and different ways of doing things. Today we're going to be working with color. We're going to be trying some metallic objects done in a very designed and basic way. I think the more you draw with metal and metal looks, the more you're going to understand light and color and the surfaces that reflect that light. Let's get started. This is very, very basic. Just a rounded shape is very basic. But the more complex you get, it's the same concept. Okay, so let's try something a little different. Let's do a little bit of a superhero design. First thing I want to do is just off to the side, I'm going to do a little sketch. So I'm going to just start out. This is where her head is. And we're going to have this kind of, there's her head, her shoulders down in here somewhere, chest, arm. And we're just going to simplify this quite a bit. In the middle of her head is where her eyes are, somewhere around in there. And you can put a little line there to just say this is where the eyes go. You can put a little line to say this is where the nose goes. You can put a little line to say this is where the mouth goes. They're just guidelines here. Tell us where everything goes. And then you can go back in and you can put in a little bit more detail, but keep it simple. So here's some hair. There's her neck, her shoulder. Remember, we're doing kind of a comic book style, so a little more hair than is needed. You want to do her outfit. This is a good place to use that technique, that metal technique, to make it look metal. We can make it look more metal than it is here. And again, you can kind of simplify it a little bit. Now, we have drawn some ink things together. So I just want to review a little bit, if you will. I'm going to go ahead and ink this in. Then we're going to get rid of our graphite, just like normal. So you guys all got Pigma Micron pens? So I'm just going to use some basic ink techniques. Remember, there's some areas that you may want to leave out, so it's up to you. I always start with the eyes, eyebrows, your basic eye. That's what it is. And you don't need to do anything on the bottom. Some people like to do a little line on the bottom, but it's usually very light and you can't see it anyway. So I wouldn't do anything on the bottom. Just a couple little brackets. And oftentimes you give, especially in superheroes, a little more eyelash than you see normally. maybe want to leave out a lot of the bridge of the nose, you can put just a couple little dots or dashes, pick up the tip of the nose. And that's about it for the nose. Sometimes you can do a little shadow in there if you wanted to. Some people like to do a little line over it like that, just a little shadow. But you don't really need much. And use our reference there to help you along. Corners of the mouth, you'll get a little bit darker in the corners of the mouth. Don't be afraid to break some edges, especially with the lips. And the bottom lip is just a little shadow underneath. If you do a little double line, it kind of gives the illusion that there's a reflection there. Because the top lip is usually a little darker, you can do just a couple little lines through the top lip. And that's basically it. I mean, you don't want to do a lot of too much line with superhero kinds of things. Although I have seen some professional artists that do superheroes that really do a lot more line than is probably needed. But you want to keep the face really basic. If you want to make it look better, make some of those lines thicker and thinner. I always take this opportunity because it helps me to smooth out some of the lines. I shake when I draw. And so this kind of helps me to smooth out some lines. The other thing you can do is if you want to put just like 3 or 4 little lines where the cheekbones go. A couple little dots and dashes and you got it. There's our face. And I'll show you how to paint this in a superhero way. If you like anime or any kinds of cartoon style designs, this works for that. When you're doing hair, you just kind of pick out where the shines are and do a couple of little lines out from the shadows into the shine, and then you got it. I mean, it's pretty basic. Your design should stand by itself. So, in other words, before you add color, it needs to look good, even without the color. I'm just kind of scribbling. I always maybe put too much hair on them. But you just kind of follow the curve of the hair, and you kind of look at your scrap and go, hey, you know what? I can see where those darks are. Just throw in those darks. Leave out some light areas. When you're all done, you just put a few little lines into those lighter areas, and voila, it looks just like you need it to. Sometimes there's thicker pens that you can use. I don't have any of the comic book pens, but you can buy those. They're kind of a wedge shape, a little thicker and thinner. Kind of up to you. We can work more on the hair too if you want to, but it's kind of the last thing on my mind there. I want to get to the point where we're painting in the flesh tones. Well, for us, that's probably enough. Once you get your drawing done, get rid of your graphite. So we're going to use the same kind of concept that we did on our sphere here, on the face here. So we're going to need to do a little bit of color mixing. So I've got my palette over here. I'm just going to do a little bit of color mixing. I want to get a flesh tone over here. So I'm going to start out with a little bit of orange and mix that over there. Get rid of as much color off of my brush as I can. And if you clean it off, if you dry it off, then whatever else you put it into is not gonna go off into your palette. Maybe a tiny bit of brown. Mix that up. And maybe a little bit more red, or a little red, just a tiny bit. And this, you want to thin it out so it's really thin. This is a little bit on the orange side. Maybe a little bit more brown. No, that's now on the brown side. Let's try a little yellow. That's a little bit better. A little bit of yellow, maybe a little red in there. But you want to get it so it's on the pinky peach side, but not too. You don't want it too yellow. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to paint in where the shadows are, like around her cheek here, around the eyes, maybe a little bit down the bridge of the nose on this side. I'm just going to take this color and I'm going to paint that there. And at first it looks kind of blotchy, lack of a better way to put it. So wherever you see kind of shadowy areas, we'll put that in there. And at first it looks kind of, I don't know what the word is. Looks terrible. But that's okay, because we're gonna use that to our advantage. You can do that everywhere, wherever you feel like you need it. Once you've got all the pigment out of your brush, well, you don't even need all the pigment out of there. I'm just going to dip it once in the water, and then I'm going to grab some of this and pull it out. Now, there's little shiny areas, little white areas. I'm going to avoid those. So I'm grabbing this, and now I'm going to just pull it out, and there's a little light area there. I'm going to avoid that. Pull this out. Any place that is light on the cheek here, I'm going to avoid that. A little bit down the bridge of the nose. I'm just using water just to pull that out, to lighten it up. All of a sudden you're going to get these really kind of fun, nice flesh tones, and they're very, very little paint that you use. You've got to just say, well, I'm just going to do a little bit there and just kind of let it go. This is just water, and I'm just bringing out some of that paint that I put in off to the side. And any place that is light, I want to leave it out. I can always come back in and touch a little bit more too. Or you can go grab a little bit of paint and bring some of that back in. You can always add more. So if you look at it and go, oh, it needs to be a little darker or whatever, you can always add more. A little red for her lips, and maybe a little bit down in her bottom lip, but remember that there's a shine on that bottom lip, so you may want to just leave that little shine out. You can come back in and touch that little shine if we need to. She needs blue eyes, so I'm just going to put a little bit of blue in that eye. I want to try to avoid the highlight, so I'm just going to put a little bit of blue in there. Try to avoid that highlight. I'm going to take a little bit of yellow into that orangey red that I had. And that yellow is going to be very warm. So anything gold, voila, there it is. If there's a highlight, just leave it out. Add a little purple to that, wherever your dark areas are. And there's your metal. You could add a little red or a little orange to that as well. Since her hair is black, I'm just going to take a little bit of black. I'm going to do the same thing I did with my pen. I'm just going to start in the darkest areas. Wherever the dark areas are, just put in your black. You can roll a little bit up towards, but you want to leave the light area out. What we'll do is we'll come back in and touch it with some water, and it'll give us our highlights. You can do a lot of this with your marker too, with your pen. You can even add a little bit of blue to her hair. You'll see in comic books where they do that quite often. But I'm just going to go back into it now, and just water on my brush, just a little bit. I'm going to pull some of that out, not much, just enough. Let it kind of bleed in there, and voila, that's it. Don't go over it too much. Now, same thing for her outfit that we did with our little ball there. I'm gonna start out with purple just because purple's a good color, or blue. Red. Your flesh tones really are just so light. You just let the board show through. And it's just all done with water, using the color that's already there. Hope you had fun. Hope you learned something. We got through most of this. Again, this is practice. Thanks for coming along with me on this little journey of art. Remember, the experience is what's important. I hope you have a lovely day. And remember, art makes life better.